Good morning. Welcome to our daily devotion. It is Wednesday, May 5th. Just want to let you know that I can't do youth videos this week because of commitments with New Church. We have to meet with their sound team tonight to learn how to run their sound and their lighting. So I'm going to be meeting Jesse and Cheryl there. Morning, Serena. So no youth this week, but we'll have our usual message Sunday, and we'll continue these daily devotions. In fact, these daily devotions will continue even after we meet with Collision at our church. Isn't that exciting? Serena, we get to finally meet again. Oh my goodness, and I'm excited. There's going to be, just in the sanctuary alone, there's 100, at least a minimum of 100 commitments so far of people coming. Morning, Paul. Just in the sanctuary, plus the children and the teachers, etc. So it's going to be a rip-roaring first Sunday. I'm excited. We're in Matthew chapter 19. I'm going to read verses 13 through 15. It says, "The little children were brought to Jesus for him to place his hands on them and pray for them. But the disciples rebuked those who brought them. Jesus said, 'Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these.' When he had laid his hands on them, he went on from there." Now, you have to realize that it was very different at that time. Told you this many times. When they would count the numbers, like when they fed 4,000, when Jesus fed 4,000, 5,000, they just counted men only. They did not count the women. They did not count the children. That's why in the older versions of the Bible, it's always he, man, man, man. When I'm reading it, I have to paraphrase it and make it neutral rather than just male. So it was very, very male dominant at that time. And women and children were to be seen but not to be heard. So the disciples didn't want them to bother Jesus, and they actually rebuked the people who brought them. I can remember years ago going to a church with when my kids were real young, and we always like sitting up closer up front. And my kids were acting up a little bit during the service, and the priest said, "If you have children, take them over to the children's section." There was a section behind the window where you could see what was going on, but you couldn't hear them, and they couldn't hear you. I was so embarrassed. Everybody in the church looked over at us. It was like, get the children out of here. I'm so thankful that God has given me a love for children, just a special place for them. I do what Jesus did. Jesus laid his hands on the children, like giving him his blessing. Morning, Christina. Morning, Lily. Giving the children his blessing. I've been blessed. Here I am, a grandpa, and I love kids. I love kids. I tell you all the time about my grandkids. I get them every Monday, every Tuesday, every Thursday, every Friday, and sometimes on weekends. I can remember years ago when I was still working with the hotel business in Austin, my oldest grandson now, who's a sophomore in college, was just around James's age now, around 5 years old. And I had called his mom to tell her that I was going to pick him up to take him to a park. But I got held up at work, got some phone calls that I had to deal with, and it was like 2 hours before I was able to get there. And when I drove, they lived in a cul-de-sac, and when I drove up to the end of the cul-de-sac, I could see him in his window. He had his upstairs bedroom, right, looked out over the cul-de-sac. And I looked up, and he had that big grin on his face. And his mom, Tracy, told me that he never left that window. When she told him that Grandpa was coming to get him, he stayed by that window for 2 hours. For 2 hours sitting there waiting for me to get there. That's love. That's love. little James now, who's now my 5-year-old now, my last one, every day asks my daughter, his mom, is it Grandpa Day today? Is it Grandpa Day today? And when I bring them home, every time I bring him home, I, I, I drive to the corner because he goes over to the corner of the street there, waits for me to come by there so he could say goodbye to me, so he can say I love you, etc. I love kids, and kids pick up on whether you really care about them or not. Kids just pick it up. Same with youth. You can't fool them. They know whether you really care or not. I know a lot of youth pastors that are youth pastors that they just use it as a stepping stone to get into full-time ministry as an adult pastor. So they have to start somewhere. So they start with youth, but that's not their passion. Their passion is not youth. When I first got into ministry, one of the reasons that Rosewood Church hired me, because I was 42 years old at the time, was because they realized that that was my passion, youth. And they knew that I wasn't going to use it as a stepping stone. God didn't put me in with adults until I was 64 years old, before he finally put me in working with adults. I had a passion for youth, for children. The very first ministry I had at New Life Church, I went to ask if I could work with the youth. And because my wife wasn't doing ministry with me, they said, no, we want couples to work with youth. So they had me teach fourth grade. So I taught fourth grade there for 4 years. So God gave me a special love for youth and children. And here's what I want to let you know. They are vital to the life of a church. They are vital. They say there's 3 signs of a healthy church. One of them is a nursery full of children, because that means you're attracting young couples. Now, I know this there's a shadow of a doubt here. I mean, I just want you to think now of some of you. Christina, you got grandchildren. Marcy, you got grandchildren. Sharon, you got grandchildren. Lily, you got children. Paul, you got children. I want you to imagine visiting a new church now for the first time, okay? And you bring your children with you. And I've shared this with you before, and you go into the service and you walk out and you say to your spouse, I really enjoyed that. Yeah, let's go back next week. Yeah, let's go. Then they get in the car and ask their kids, how was it? And the kids go, oh, it was boring. I don't want to go again. Guess what? You're probably not going to go again next week. Now let's reverse it. You and your spouse go to the service, the service is all done, you look at one another and go, ugh, that wasn't very good. We need to look for another church. And then you get in the car and ask your kids how it went, and they go, oh, we loved it, Mom, Dad, we loved it. Are we going back next week? Are we going? Guess what? You're probably going to go back next week now. I did that. I don't want to say where, but I went to a church for years. Never went to the service, but I worked with the youth and the children on Sundays because my kids loved going there. They loved going there. I didn't get much out of it, of the service, so I never went to, but my children loved it, so I went there. Children are vital to the life of a church. I believe this, that if you're a church planter and you're going to plant a church, and you're going to hire staff. Now we don't at our church here now, Collision, but if you're going to hire staff, most after the pastor they hire a worship leader, they hire adult director. That first one ought to be a children's director. It ought to be a children's director and create an incredible children's program, because that's the life of a church, is the children. So my hope is that this Sunday now, I'm thankful we've got 3 women that have done this now for the 10 years that we were meeting at Palms. They were the ones that worked with the children diligently. All 3 of them will not be in the service on our first Sunday, the 16th, because they'll be in there working with children. We hope to get the best. We hope to get the best to work with children, because they are just so vital. So vital. You know how precious. You have children, you have grandchildren, you know how precious they are. We all want our children to grow up to know the Lord. So it's important. That's why I choose to lead the impact in the crash group youth groups. I choose because I've got tons of experience. So I'm going to use my experience to teach. So I'm excited because I know the names of every child in Collision Church. I know the names. I know the names of the babies. Uh, I know little Everest now, and the children now that are just been born. Uh, I I can't wait for them to get old enough to come to Impact. Um, Scott and Becky have a little girl now, Charlotte. She's really not old enough yet to go to Impact, and neither was Abby, but I allowed her to come early just because I wanted her to, it's a godly family, and I wanted to be able to help with their child. So little Charlotte will come in now as before, a year before she's supposed to, like her sister did, because I know, and it was interesting. I know I'm rambling on, but when little Charlotte first was seeing me for probably the first year, she was like hesitant of me. Now I went over here just recently to bring the container with all the children's stuff for Becky to go through, and little Charlotte came up to give me a hug now. And it's kind of like I finally have got her to where she feels comfortable with me. So children are important to me. They're really important to me. I love children. I hope that people realize when they visit Collision that Collision loves children, because we want families to return, and they're going to return if their children enjoy it. Jesus understood that. He said, don't hinder the little children. No. Let them come to me. And then he put hands on them and blessed them. I'm sure that those little children felt special, that they knew that Jesus was somebody special, that they were not oblivious, that they knew about, they seen and heard about Jesus doing incredible miracles. Crowds followed Jesus by the thousands. The children knew that they were following Jesus for a reason. So when Jesus took the time to put hands and bless them, that was special to them. That was special to them. I want to be like Jesus, to take the time to lay my hands on children and bless them. Hey, thanks for joining me this morning. There'll be, as I said, there'll be no youth meeting tonight. I got a meeting with Sound at our new church. But I'll see you tomorrow morning at our next daily devotion. God bless you. Have a great day. See you all.